Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios in Morristown, New Jersey. Got another great episode for you today. We got a repeat guest. He's coming back on the show, Trevor Andersen. He's the managing partner at TRJ Consulting. Trevor, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm happy to be here, brother.
Happy to have you here. So today we're talking about the sales process. Right. And I think that this has been something that, we've discussed quite a bit over the last 7-8 months, however long this has gone on. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have tried their own, anybody that's in sales or trying to generate business has faced some, issues over the last, definitely. So first things first, though, I want you to talk about TRJ and kind of give everybody listening an idea of what it is that you do.
Of course. So at TRJ, we're an outsourced CFO and COO advisory firm. So basically what that means is it's a part-time fractional basis. So we help small businesses and startups all the way to lower middle market companies evaluate price, cash flow needs, operations excellence changes, and really an overall strategy of the business model. So where we really kind of complement is a business owner that's very much underwater. They're doing a lot of things and they rely a lot on their advisors and their trusted people. Where we come in is we provide that, I'll call it that keen eye when it comes to looking at where the business needs to be and helping them get through the storm that we're in right now. And that's just a little bit on what TRJ does. I mean, we, as a referral mechanism and people to introduce to, there's not a bad introduction.
Right.
Regardless if it's a client or not, I think most ways, and we'll talk about more about this as we get into this, about the sales process, is really understanding how to solve a problem for someone, even if it's not something you can do directly.
Right. Absolutely. So I know you said no bad introductions, but just give everybody an idea of the types of businesses that you do work with.
Of course. So usually the 10 million and down, where you've gained enough traction that you start to see a horizon of an acquisition, or you're starting to streamline, you're starting to see profits bleed, or on the top side, hey, listen, I've been at $9 or $10 million now for, 1 to 2 years, and I've plateaued. So both on the top line to help boost revenue and increase it by offering different services and changing price and rate, or on the bottom line, hey, listen, I'm killing it. I'm doing $50 million a year in top line revenue, but I make $0 in margin, mainly because I have too much fixed cost.
Right.
So any business model, service, product, manufacturing, or just a regular company, for that matter, is a great introduction for myself.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So now that we've kind of fleshed out TRJ, now everybody kind of gets an idea of what it is that you do and who you're working with. So we're talking about the sales process. So I'm in sales, selling title insurance. You're in sales as a business owner. Let's talk about what your sales process may have looked like pre-COVID. Let's take that first, so we kind of get an idea of that, and then we'll do during COVID, and then we'll do post-COVID.
Okay, great. So pre-COVID obviously is a unique. It was a completely different world. I think, at least from my business perspective, what we do is you generally get on site. So usually in any business model, at least what I've done pre-COVID was I spent some time at the business model. Whether it be a location, an operation, and really said, hey, listen, let me allow them to do a walkthrough. Let me ask some questions. And the mechanism of the sales process was a lot different because there was a lot of interaction with people, a lot of body language reading. There was an opportunity to get a cup of coffee, sometimes drinks, sometimes lunch, sometimes golf, right? I mean, that was the way it worked, pre-COVID. It was a different beast. Since the kind of changeover of things, we've all gone to this Zoom video environment where a lot of the interactions that we would have done originally in person are now done via Zoom. Work's done via Zoom. Like there's a client I worked with as a small legal firm, and I've never met them. I plan to very soon, but we've got introduced via networks. We've had a ton of Zoom calls. We've done a ton of great things together, but it's all been around this virtual environment,
right?
Which I think is some of the hardest things right now, because it's not as if you were to go and sit down with someone and really have a cup of coffee and find out a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
On the video side, it's a little bit more, and this is me, it's just maybe a little bit less organic for me.
I agree. Yeah.
So I can tell you personally, Mike and I met just recently. So I met Mike months ago.
Yeah, 4 or
We've
5 months
talked a
ago now.
lot on the phone. We've talked a lot on the video. And I'll tell you what, I learned a lot more about you, good,
Yeah.
bad, or different, when we sat down for a little place in Red Bank to have some lunch.
Yeah.
I think that really drove a change or an evolution in our future business model and our business relationship.
Yeah.
And it's harder to do that in video. So how do you take that and bring it back into where we are now? I think that's one of the hardest questions as we go further and further into the future.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So I think that the video stuff, obviously I've done throughout quarantine, COVID time, a ton of video. And before this, I had not done any video, and not just, video like this, where we're posting marketing clips for the podcast on LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff like that. Even the LinkedIn videos that I was doing before, but just stuff like you were talking about, like doing networking events on camera. And so I think that the video stuff is good in a sense, excuse me, that, I've met more people doing virtual networking events than I would have ever in this amount of time in person. Right. And then now you get into this thing where it's like, I am meeting a lot of people. I probably would have never met Trevor if not for virtual networking, honestly. But now that I did, and that's been great, but I do agree with you that there's like that separation where it's like, just, it's not as intimate, like you get to know people, but you don't get that like next level kind of like interaction. So like for me, pre-COVID, the title insurance industry, especially here in New Jersey, is all relationships and service. So it's all regulated. So it doesn't matter what company you go to, you're going to get charged the exact same price for the exact same product, essentially. And what the difference is relationships and service, like I said. So you just need to go out there and generate relationships. So like you said, taking people out for lunch, going to events, going out for drinks, going out to whatever it is, and just getting to know them on like a personal level. I have clients now that are like, I would consider them friends of mine. You know what I mean? Like we do stuff and like hang out beyond just the scope of like our business relationship. And then obviously once COVID started, like you said, at the beginning here in New Jersey, you could not do anything. Like you couldn't, even if you wanted to go out to lunch with somebody, you probably couldn't, and you probably shouldn't. Right. And then as we've kind of progressed, like things have slowly started to open up. So like you said, we had lunch together. So that's a great thing. But this whole environment has really created like a lot of obstacles, but I do think, and we're going to get into this in a little bit later, a lot of opportunities to kind of expand how we do things beyond, like once we push through this finally, whenever that is, I think it does create a lot of opportunities for people like us.
Oh, without a doubt. I call it like this. I think of it like a sweet 15. So basically after every meeting I've ever had in real life, there's been content, right, business relationship, and then it's like this 15-minute window. Obviously it could span a lot more. I think you and I we spoke for a long time, but it's this little time that you wouldn't get on, hey, I have an hour block with Mike Ham this morning, or hey, I have a 30-minute introductory call. There's this little notch of 15 minutes where it's like, hey, I've already passed the time in my mind that we've already earmarked for this. Now I'm going to understand you as a person a little bit more.
Right.
And I think that's more times than not where you find a lot of value and synergies. And not the garbage word synergies, like I'm trying to sell you on my product or service.
Yeah.
Like synergies, hey, listen, I've had a unique experience in my life, and this is how I think about things. Well, holy crap. I've had a very similar, unique experience, and I think almost the same way. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to work. Now I feel like we've already related on a more personal level. Yeah. Understand a little bit more what you're trying to do, whether it be a service product or just in general life. Hey, listen, I may want to meet, a real estate attorney. Well, I happen to know hundreds now because I've met them, in the process of this networking. And to your point, Mike, this is where the value is, where we're all digging it strong.
Yeah.
International introductions, different states. Now, how do you really kind of take that and move it forward and make it an important and broad network into the sales process, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be one of the hardest things is how do you say once, as other states have lifted the ban on mask and become a little bit more safe and consumers, clients, customers, everyone feel safe to meet again. Yeah. How do you then re-leverage some of those relationships you made in other states? Like, I think that's one of the toughest things. I'll give you an example. I met a ton of people in South Florida, attorneys, venture capitalists, private equity. Now, some of them do work up here, right, in New Jersey where we're located, but you think, how do I then bring that back in, right? That's going to be one of the harder things to do on the sales side, I think, a little bit. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you and I have been on networking calls with people, like you said, overseas, in different countries. And then, so like, I do think now the majority of my business is spent here in the majority of my clients are here in New Jersey. So, like I do want to stay on the during COVID stuff for a little bit, but I do think that there's the opportunity to kind of couple the stuff that we have been doing over the last 7-8 months,
Yeah.
and how we used to do business before COVID, and then be able to marry those. Because my big thing is that, like, right now it's hard for me to get in front of people face to face.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, I mean that's just the most obvious statement of the episode so far, and probably will be.
Yeah, of course.
But at the same time, like what I said, how the virtual stuff, I've just met more people and developed more relationships. Like you're one of them, a prime example. I have plenty of others that are the same way. Where like when I was in that going to in-person meetings all the time mode, it was like I would go to a lunch, then I'd go back to my office or apartment or whatever, and then maybe I'd have something in the evening. So I would really just go to like 2 things. So maybe I meet, 1 person at lunch and 5 people at the event, 6 people.
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. But then what happens when like that dead time in between those events, right? So like all of a sudden, if you start doing stuff like this, and people are just constantly seeing my stuff that's out there online, and they're all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, isn't that Mike Ham? Isn't that Trevor Andersen? Isn't that whoever? You know what I mean? So then like, when you do go to those in-person events, you're just in their brain all the time.
Yeah, right.
It's
Exactly.
like I always like try to, I don't know if you're a Seinfeld guy, but like when George keeps leaving the stuff behind, and he's like, gets in their head like a jingle,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Costanza. Like you just want them to like always think like Ham, 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 Anderson,
Yeah.
Anderson, Anderson, Anderson. And if you're putting this stuff out online, in addition to the stuff when you actually do get to meet people in person, because we're both personable guys, right? So all of a sudden you're like, wow, like I think about Mike Ham all the time, and that's what I need for my business, right?
Well, I mean, listen, I think we all need that for our businesses. I mean, you're right. If we stay within the construct of where we are with COVID today, right? It's all about. I think integrity is big too, right? Because I saw a couple of your episodes too, and you've done some great things on talking about the power of network and really like when people just come in. Hey, listen, I'm just going to look for one good COI. I'm out the door. That's not real sales process. I mean, I think ultimately, there's been clients that have approached me that we've ultimately not worked together because I think we have difference in views. And that's great because that's not everybody's cup of tea. But you're right. The name needs to resound, and doing things like spending some time on the podcast, but also not exacerbating your whole day. Right. So obviously there's network call after network call after network call, and you could do them perpetually.
Yeah.
And there's people we know that do them perpetually, but you have to almost scale back a little bit because you have to save some time for actual work and what makes and defines you. Right. And obviously spending time personally and doing things, promote yourself and well-being. But I think if you just look at the sales process in total, right, the courtship of a client is completely different.
Yeah.
It was, hey, I buy you lunch, or I shouldn't say that. I met you through a warm lead from a marketing perspective. We've maybe gone for a cup of coffee, and now, hey, maybe I'm on site. Just give me some broad terms. Give me a little leeway on that.
Yeah.
Now it's, hey, I've seen your name like 100,000 times on the internet. I've been referred to you by 60,000 people, it seems like, which is good,
Yep.
right? But now it's almost like an onslaught a little bit.
Yeah.
So then how do you take that back in and make it a little bit more personal? And video is great, right? If you could do like a one-on-one video with people and kind of get them a little bit more. But how do you then take that and say, hey, listen, now we've done the dance, and now how I want to dip you, right? Like as you would as the generic courtship, I'm going to do the little dip, from the movies.
Right.
But like, how do you get there? And I think that's one of the hardest things we're all trying to figure out. Like, how do we all get there in our businesses and our clients? And I just go back to transparency. I think if you're doing good things and you're generally a good person and you've done positive things to get there, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. I think you shouldn't stress as much that, hey, I don't have a client. I'm not at 100% utilization or capacity. most of us probably now amongst the COVID are anywhere from 25 to 75%. I mean, there's obviously some people that are killing it, obviously, but I'd say a good majority of the country is, hey, you know, I'm doing, some of us are doing worse. Some of us are doing okay.
Right.
I don't think I've met a lot of people in the last few months that said, hey, you know what? I don't even have time to talk to you. I'm just like, I don't
slammed.
know. Yeah. I am slammed, bro. I can't do anything. But to that respect, that means we're all in a very similar bucket. And business owners too, right? They're struggling. They're dealing with PPP loans. They're dealing with cash flow issues. They're dealing with staffing problems. Hey, listen, I want to keep, I'm an owner of 20 years and I have to get rid of some of my staff. No one wants to do that, right? This time has really started to test everybody. But, you know, I think one of the benefits of being in the process we are is you can navigate to, hey, I know a Trevor, I know Mike Ham, or I know Adam Blessing, or Mike Manella, or whomever, right? Joanne, or I know Matt Schiller, because these are all great people. Tyler Thigpen, there goes another one, right? Yeah. You start to realize there's different outlets to go to, and then you start to find those intersections.
Right. So, I mean, that was a perfect segue. So you talked about Joanne and Mike and Adam and Matt and Tyler. What are some things that you've been doing over COVID time that have helped like expand your network and like, you know, basically like what are some ways that you've been trying to get in front of people more and provide some value? Because I think that is what one of the things that, at least in my opinion, is an important part of that sales process, especially on my end, is to provide value. Like they can go to, I don't know how many different people that sell title insurance in New Jersey to get the same thing. Yeah. But they come to me because I'm able to provide value beyond just the title insurance process. You know, it's like using the network to try to like help people make money, all that kind of stuff. So what are some ways that you've been during COVID trying to provide value back to people that you want to get business from?
Well, I'll give you this, a perfect example. We'll do this one last because I love this one. But so one of the people I just met, rattle off a bunch of names. So I am a co-business owner with my business partner, Sid Vadia, in an event arm where we put on virtual events for the specific needs of what's going on in the world today. I'll give you an example. We just did an amazing one on residential real estate. Mike was on it as a panelist host. We had a bunch of great people. You know, we're doing other ones in the commercial real estate space, selling to private equity. Questions that I think business owners all have, but sometimes they don't want to spend $100,000 an hour with a McKinsey or a Bain. Hey, I need to talk to somebody, but I don't know who to talk to. Yeah. Right. I've always heard a consultant or whatever the case is. So we're providing a forum, very low cost model, $5, $10. Ticket prices are nothing. It's really to give the benefit of what we're doing is to provide the value. Hey, I know Mike Ham is the best title person I've ever met in my life. So you know what? When I want to do a title event, but someone in Cape May, New Jersey doesn't know Mike Ham, just by situation, they're hours apart. They've never seen each other. So, hey, someone from Cape May gets on the program. They meet Mike Ham. Boom. Perfect synergy right there. Like Adam Lessing with one of the people on the call, the one we just did recently. I know there was a great follow-up. I actually spoke to Adam about it. It sounds like there's an opportunity here. Yeah. Awesome. That's what we want. Now, in prior COVID, you didn't even have that. I mean, you'd have to come to an event. I'm going to truck up all the way up to North Morristown, which is kind of far from me, not too far, but a little bit. Right. I'm going to go to an event, and hopefully I got to speak to Adam. That was, I hoped. Now, he was in the room. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It still existed. Like, Mike, you were in the room. I could have met you. I could have been at an event with you, Mike, and I'd never even know who you are.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, when sorry to cut you off, but like when I would go to events, you know, it'd be like, let's just say there's 200 people in the room, right? But I know, because I see the attendee list beforehand, that I have, let's just say 5 clients at this event, and I have an hour to get through the whole room. Or 2 hours, whatever it doesn't even matter. Yeah, I have to talk to those 5 people, the 5 clients, and then maybe in those conversations, or maybe I get a chance to talk to like 1 or 2 other people. But you know, like you said, I mean, I may have been at an event with you in the past, but I just would have no idea. You know,
I mean, that's just the way it works now. I mean, but think about it. So that's one business model. Right? We talk about things they're doing. Another one is I'll call it, it's called Business Talk After Hours. I'm partnered with an amazing attorney, Mitch Beinhacker, investment banker, Jeff Brenner, and then Mike Manella over at Merrill Lynch. And the idea is we bring on different guests and we just openly discuss topics. Like, how to do networking with Jack Killian, obviously a master networker, a gentleman with an exquisite amount of years behind him. Or, hey, listen, I want to learn about operations and, what's going on in the business world at the ports. We brought on Ken Winkler, 9/11 veteran, like American hero by far and by far.
Great episode. Would highly recommend to anybody listening. Definitely got to watch that.
Yeah, thank you so much. But I mean, there's an opportunity here. So again, providing value. Yeah. So maybe there's something on there that someone said, maybe it was me, maybe it was Mike, maybe it was whomever. And someone hears it like they're doing today. Hey, listen, I heard something, on a podcast or video talk, whatever it is, an event. And it's kind of like it sparked an interest in my brain. Or I have a very similar situation. Hey, listen, we all kind of do the same thing. Like people in title insurance, maybe you can leverage their ideas. There's a ton of CFOs, COOs out there in the market. And I talk to bigger firms all the time and ask questions. Like I've been doing this my whole life. Like I've been in accounting, finance, operations for a very long time, but it was at the corporate level. So I've only been a business owner for just under 2 years. So I still ask questions. I have no problem doing it because it makes me a better person. It allows me to understand what's going on. And that's where that value creation comes in.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It was like you were saying, my friend got on there and asked a question because he's looking to buy his grandma's house on that residential panel that we did. Yeah. And it was like perfect. I mean, like Adam was able to just jump in and just answer that question perfectly because he does that stuff. And my buddy probably would have no idea where to even begin to start to get that answer. And I'm sure that there were other people that were in that event that were like, what? I didn't know you could do that.
Mike, I'm sure there's tons of people buying homes that I think maybe, right? But
yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what? Like it works with businesses too. Like hey, listen, I need to fix my pricing algorithm at a law firm, right? If I'm evaluating what I'm charging per hour, all law firms that are not billed by a project or retainer do have an hourly fee based on it. So maybe the conversation we had, maybe not proprietary, right? You want to keep the special sauce in-house and keep everything inside the framework of the contract. But hey, listen, maybe there was a discussion of an open topic of a system out there. Hey, listen, there's this great new X, Y, and Z system, and it really evaluates your utilization and your realization of billable hours. Wow. I'm a law firm. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. Car industry, car dealerships, right? I met a gentleman in the technology space, and he has a beautiful piece of technology that integrates the service mechanism with consumers. I will say it in a blasphemous way that not every dealership uses it, because I know for a fact not every dealership uses it. But could they leverage things to help them? Now, wrong, right, or indifferent, if we had a conversation about that on an open forum like this, or on Business Talk, or the Morning Spotlight, or wherever, and it came up and someone saw it and they're like, oh crap, maybe we should have a conversation. Maybe there's a further reach out to Trevor or Mike for that matter, and that's how this ball gets moving pretty quick. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So all right, so now that things are starting to open up a little bit, right, and we're starting to see some in-person events, and we're starting to see some people actually like you said, we got lunch together, and because we were both comfortable going and, taking the necessary precautions, obviously, but we felt comfortable being at the table together. I knew you weren't, going out all over the place and, getting me sick. But at some point, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to get back to totally back to normal per se. So I'm interested to see kind of like your perspective on how, I know we've discussed this kind of like we've danced around it a little bit, but how we're going to take the stuff that we've been doing and couple that with the stuff that we did before, and how we can make the process even better. Like how do we take it to the next level? Because I do think that this, while it has presented a lot of challenges, has given us a lot of opportunities to grow even more.
Well, I think of, and I'll try to put this in the best words I can, right? So I can tell you such a value in expanding the network. I had a situation where I needed a tax advisory question answered for someone in the UK. And they called me via Zoom. And within minutes, I grabbed someone in Utah to kind of solve the problem. So that would have never existed pre-COVID, right?
No.
So now I have this little magic nugget, as I like to call it. Now, hey, I don't have to worry about Zoom anymore. I'm going out to Red Bank with my cam. We're going to meet a client. All right, awesome. So now we're talking a bit, and there's a solution. There's a problem that arises, which is every business owner has problems, which is not unlike any people in life. And hey, listen, now I have a network. Now the question is, how do you then take that same situation you have right here in person, 3D, organic,
Yeah.
say, hey, how do I leverage like something I did in the past like that? Well, I think you do due diligence on the things that you've done with the people, and you really create a good background of a network. Hey, listen, like it's almost like a quarterback of a team. Like I know I have a wide receiver that's sitting in, Southern California right now, but this guy can run or gal can run 1,000 miles an hour and catch the ball with one hand, no problem even looking at it. I just met Mike Ham. He kind of mentioned he made a wide receiver. Oh, crap. All right, so how do we do this?
Yeah.
Like that's where I think the rubber's going to meet the road, Mike, is how do we then marry those connections together? I think we've all done a very good job in the COVID land of broadening our network, but then how do you then take that and leverage it in person?
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing to just network, right?
Yeah.
It's just one thing to network, because we did do an episode. It was the last episode we did was with Sid and Monica Dema and Mike Strug, and we talked about networking. But the majority of the episode was just talking about like how to network. And it's one thing to just go out and meet people, and this is part of the sales process, 100%. Is being able to, like you said, leverage that network and not just have like, oh, I just know a lot of people. Like, great, but how do you make that work for you? Yeah,
Well, I think, all right, so if I go into a situation with a new prospective client and the problem arises similar to what I said before, I know someone in a different spot.
Yeah.
It is a responsibility of me being close to that client to then say, hey, you know what? I've spent a lot of time with this person over the last 6 months. I know kind of the in and outs of them, obviously following up, but then you need to make sure that you're putting your team in a position to succeed. Now, if I happen to know that Mike Ham is a little grumpy when I talk to him, early in the morning, and no, but I mean,
how would you know that?
Yeah. But all kidding aside, so then I have a client and they're at the title and they only meet notoriously at 7 a.m. I would always recommend you first, Mike, but maybe that's not the best situation for you. Maybe it's not.
I would get up at whatever time to meet a client, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But that's understanding what your network can do and then really making it powerful for the next interaction. I would love, in some cases, I've done it. I've referred clients to larger CFO consulting firms that I could clearly work with them on, but I think they'd be better served with someone because there's a better fit, whether it be the experience, the strategy, whatever. But I'm doing that kind of very strategically. I'm looking at the relationship I formed and the conversations I've had. And hey, listen, I know this guy is a turnaround restructuring guy. I've done it a few times in my life, but this guy's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
All right. I can't have done it for 40 years. I'm not 40 years old yet. But regardless of the fact that there's an opportunity here, and I really want to do right by this client. So then how do I then go, all right, so now I'm sitting down for lunch or dinner or drinks. Now, how's that introduction made? That's the next kind of tricky thing. Now, if it's local, I think it'd be good in person. That's just me personally. As we start to get past this, this is the future thinking, not like, hey, we're still worried about everything else. But this is you can make those in-person introductions. But now let's say you don't have an opportunity. Let's say like you deal with someone from Utah. Is it a Zoom introduction? I think a great way to do it, if possible, is perhaps be on site. Like let's say we met and I want to introduce you to somebody. Perhaps you do like a WeWorks or not like a WeWorks, Legacy or Regency, where you have an office, like a little conference room. You put them up on the screen, and then there's a little bit more of a personal interaction. Like Mike and I are sitting at the conference table, and we're talking to a gentleman or a lady in Utah.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a synergy there because we're close now. So now I brought you into my circle one step.
Right.
That's an opportunity, I think. That's a good way to do it, if it's possible.
Yeah.
It's not always possible. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like, to me, one of the biggest things is you need to be able to like those first couple, maybe like your first ever meeting with someone, you need to just get as much information about them as you possibly can, beyond just like what they do, if they're, let's just use real estate attorney, because if I say I'm a real estate attorney, you know exactly what it is that I do, essentially. I mean, like there's different nuances to it, but you kind of get the big picture. But then like, let's just say it's a real estate attorney that does only residential work. And then I just think real estate attorney and I introduce them to like a commercial real estate broker. That's probably not going to be like a good fit, So you need to be able to like understand a lot more beyond what you do and what your clients do. You need to try to understand like the whole picture so that when you do get into those situations, you can make that network work for you a little bit. And I just think that it's, important to make sure that you do it the right way, because like, I mean, I think it could really backfire on you if you're not prepared, and you don't know, and you're just like blindly like trying to make introductions. Because one of the things for me, and I think that when I was first starting networking, it was like, if someone said, oh, you should meet this person, I would always do it. I would be like, well, I just need to meet people. Yeah. And I didn't really understand or grasp like what it was that I needed to be doing when it came to networking. So I would go to these, coffee meetings or lunch meetings and whatever. We'd talk for maybe like 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it was. And I'd walk out and be like, wow, that did nothing for me. And like, not that they weren't good people and not that maybe in the future, you never know what's going to happen. But at the same time, like they were so far removed from like what it was that I did that I just like, I couldn't really do anything for them and they couldn't really do anything for me. So, like, I think as I've kind of progressed, I've just gotten better at trying to be able to like, take the people that need to meet and put them together so that they can do some business together. And hopefully on the back end, it kind of trickles down to me. And that's how my sales process works, I guess.
I mean, very similar for me, Mike. I think of bringing people in, right? So when we form Business Talk After Hours, the idea is to have a coalition of a good network that can provide sound advice for a business owner. I just had an opportunity where a gentleman called me about a situation he has with his business. I was able to get multiple different people, obviously all in the state of New Jersey, but separated by far, and to bring on an advisory type perspective. And we have yet to move forward, but we provided sound advice. And I think there's an opportunity here, regardless if they use us or not. Yeah. There's an opportunity for them, to take some information away. And again, learning and understanding the value of your network as a form of a sale mechanism, like just tying the whole sales process back in. Yeah. You got to understand that there may be some pro bono items. Like I think personally, like if there's a couple people I'd work with for free, because I think I can learn from them. And then you start to form that relationship. And then they say, hey, you know what? When I'm going on to this client and I have this specific need, right? I'm calling Trevor. I'm calling my Cam. Yeah. Like we can't all be the jack of all trades. Right. And I got hit in the face so many times when I was a young guy. I could do it all. I remember telling all my bosses, don't worry about it. I'm the best. I'm always the best. I can do everything. I'm the best. Right. But I started to realize as I started to grow in my business career that, hey, I'm really good at tying operations and finance together because I speak operations, but I got a background in finance. I'm good at that. Yeah. I may not be the best at managing debt covenants and forecasting an IPO, but when it comes down to operations and finance, I'd venture to say that within where I am, I'm one of the top because I think I am, and I do well at what I do. So why would I get involved in something like title insurance? Or why would I get involved in, offering a solution on terms for a loan? I'm going to put that out to the banker out there I know. And then as I start to work with more and more people, you start to understand how they interact. And then I think what's going to really happen past this is these gigantic cross-functional teams are going to come out like I have right now. I think like you have too. And you're going to be providing such valuable content for business owners. Businesses are going to transform. They're going to become healthier from a margin perspective. They're going to become healthier from, I'll call it a positivity perspective. I think a lot of these mindful people, coaches and business coaches are really transforming the new way of working. Yeah. Like we don't go to an office that much anymore. Yeah, we're spending more time with our families, but the businesses are still running successfully. Awesome. And I think that's where a lot of value is going to come down the road. It's starting to harness the power of these networks. Yeah. Yeah. So we're kind of getting close to the end of this episode. So is there anything that we haven't touched on? I think we've hit most of our major points, but we can go into the closing segment. But if there's anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to get in before we get to there, you got anything for us? Well, I think, like we were just talking about, pre, post, after everything.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding the client and providing a solution. And the solution comes with the people you've networked with in the past.
Right.
And understanding the concept of the problem. I think it's the most important thing. And I know we've already talked about it in length, but just kind of reiterate it because I think it's very important as we move forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, so we're going to do it. We're going to jump in to the closing segment. We do this every episode, and you've already done it. I mean, and maybe that was your closing segment, but we're going to put you under the spotlight. That's our closing segment. Every episode we do it. There's a lot of pressure. It's really bright. The lights get hot, start to sweat. So if there's one thing, so we're talking sales process. We've covered like a lot of different stuff, pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, different ways that we're trying to expand our network and utilize our network and, make the sales process work better for us. So if there's one thing, maybe it's something that we've talked about already, like I said, maybe it's something we haven't touched on yet, that you want the people, the spotlight listeners to walk away from this episode with, from Trevor Andersen at TRJ Consulting, what is that one thing?
I think transparency is that one thing. I think of the sales process, open and honest with whomever you're dealing with, even if it's not the easiest thing to do. And being able to tell someone that maybe there's someone better inside your network that can help you out.
Yeah.
I think it's a humbling experience. I truly believe that, there's people that are better than me. Unfortunately, even though my mom tells me I'm the greatest.
My mom tells me that too.
It's crazy. I'm better than you. Too bad.
Okay.
But no, I mean, all kidding aside, like being able to kind of provide and really partner with the business owner or the client and really solve the problem for them.
Yeah.
You can't solve everyone's problems.
Right.
But you may know enough people and you may be confident with inside your network to refer them to someone else.
Yeah.
I think that's what I meant about transparency. It's really just integrity when it comes to
like you may personally not be able to solve all their problems, but your network could potentially solve all their problems. And then that's where you provide the value, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I used the word transparency a lot, just like in our conversations. I think you used it on the episode that you were on the hospitality on the morning spotlight. Transparency is a big one. I definitely agree with that. So for everybody listening, that's going to wrap up our episode. This was great. If you want to learn more about Trevor, I'm going to put all the contact information in the show notes. So I'll put his email address. I'll put the website for TRJ. I will put the Business Talk link, whatever links they have. I'll put that in there. The event hosting stuff, I'll put that in there. So whatever you need from Trevor, make sure you just reach out to him. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear from you or answer any questions or get you involved in whatever way that he can. If you want to hear us talk about a specific topic or if you want to be a guest on the Morning Spotlight, make sure you email us at themorningspotlight@gmail.com or go to our website at themorningspotlight.com and fill out the form, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But Trevor, thanks for coming on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. I always appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody else, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.